Hello and welcome to the Fastest Podcast. I'm Dan and we are joined by Pigeon and Jazz today. This is, of course, the first podcast of 2026. Let's just delve right into it. The big talking point is obviously the Barcelona Shakedown. So, who impressed you in the Shakedown? But in the grand scheme of things, does what happened really matter?
I mean, let's start off with cars on track. That's a
Yay!
huge achievement. We had to go a little bit of time without them, so it was great seeing cars on track again. We've had to wait for it for a couple months.
Some of them we didn't even know if we were gonna get to see them on the track. Some of them we didn't even see them on the track. So it's a bittersweet time, I think. And I think it's positive, like considering we have got this new era of regulations now, it seems generally quite a positive. The Ferrari drivers don't seem quite as morose as they've seemed. So there are
I
some
mean,
positives definitely to take away.
it's those pre-season, this is our year kind of moment, and then we just see the light go from the rise in Australia. So no, but I think the cars look good. It's a good look. Of course, new regulations means we have completely new cars. Um, I think Mercedes was the big one coming in, and didn't have any real issues in Barcelona that we know of. So they went out as well as the main one. But yeah, I think a lot of people, a lot of drivers, a lot of team principals had some key quotes that they took away from Barcelona. Of course, you can't really take them for that word, of course, but it does give kind of an indication of how testing went, what they will use for Bahrain, because of course we will have three separate testing weeks in preparation for the season. So yeah, Mercedes was the biggest one. You asked what was the biggest one. I think Mercedes was the best one. They did a lot of laps, and they were all pretty positive about them. So
Of course, lap time isn't really key in the test, and getting mileage is probably what the teams were aiming for. A team that didn't record any mileage, of course, is Williams. They didn't make it to Barcelona. Do you think this will come back to haunt them?
no.
Yes.
Do tell.
I don't think it's gonna be like massively detrimental to their season, but I do think that given the shake-up that we're having in terms of the regulations, you're gonna want as much testing time as possible. We already know that they all have such little testing time through the season. They are so heavily regulated by how much they can have their cars on track outside of a race weekend. So I just think that it will have been an unfortunate blow. And I mean, when you consider as well, they failed their crash test like 3 times allegedly. They've missed the first shakedown. They're gonna have to go into Bahrain on the back foot no matter what. Because okay, granted, other teams came a bit later to Barcelona, like Aston Martin, but they came in with a bit of a bang. It was an exciting thing when the Aston Martin finally hit the track because the newie car, they made their dramatic entrance. But with Williams, I would be a bit on edge maybe going into Bahrain and then obviously Australia. But I don't think it will be a huge detriment to the overall season. I just think you're kind of going to want as much confidence as you can have because I think you're going to really want to know very, very quickly how right or how wrong you've gotten it. Because I think some teams, it's been heavily indicated, have really got it right. So I would want as much track time as possible, personally.
You want as much track time as possible, of course, but the Barcelona shakedown wasn't that important. I think most teams just went there to get a feel of the balance, if it translated well compared to the sim. No one did an ungodly amount of laps. everyone just kind of did their thing for a couple days. You have to also calculate in. It was raining for I think 3 of those days, 3 of the 5.
Still
Um,
valuable.
yeah,
So valuable.
yeah, but I don't think it'll have much of an effect. It was a conscious choice that Williams made. They made it before the shakedown was even starting that they weren't going to be there. And I think they filled their time with other things that they wanted to do. So I don't think it's going to be, it's anyways, you either have the car or you don't. That's going to be the 2026 season because if you have to get into the development race, then you're not winning races this season anyways. So you either have the car from the beginning or you don't. And then it's just a matter of what's going to be possible for 2027. So
I mean, many of us tipped Williams to have a good season in 2026. Obviously, based on yeah, they could, but that was literally based on nothing. And they didn't make it to Barcelona. They are on the back foot, and in a new regulation season, you don't want to be on the back foot. And you have to say, in a way, another team on the back foot, maybe Audi. They had quite a few reliability issues. It's expected because they're new, but I guess it's good to find them in Barcelona so you can iron them out. But I mean, how do you see it developing over the season?
I mean, Audi is one of the teams that really went in a different direction because they don't have an established engine. They went with their own engine. They don't have a Mercedes or a Ferrari or so that's one way that they already were really different. And then they had a couple of issues in the shakedown. I think they did 140 laps on their best day. They did some great mileage, and they learned something, so that's good. Um, yeah, it's a new team, so you'd expect some kind of growing pains. Um, yeah, I think it's both positive and negative. They were there, they had the car, they ran into issues there. So yeah, I think it won't be a really good season for Audi, but if the opportunities arise, we know that both Hulkenberg and Bortoleto both can jump on it. So
I think, given the fact that they are bringing their own engine, is brave and it's a bold move. So good for them, kind of, because it is so far from what we understand, it is the limiting factor. We watched their car reveal. We saw the vibe that they're bringing. They're quietly confident, or at least they're trying to look quietly confident. So Audi is one that I really am not gonna cast any judgment on until we start the season, because I just think that that's a whole other beast. I think for them, like working out what's what and coming to sort of terms with the package that they're bringing. I think it's going to be different for an established team. Same with Cadillac. I don't really want to cast any sort of aspersions on them until the pit lane opens on the Saturday and we drive out and see what happens. Because I don't think we're gonna get very far, to be honest. Both of those teams, I think, have made it clear the tone that they are intending to set. So I'm curious, but I'll let them cook a little bit more, I think.
Yeah, so we saw Cadillac and Audi make their track debut. Another making their track debut, obviously, was the Red Bull powertrain. Obviously, it's not going to be running at its full power. But what did you guys make of how I know it's difficult to make a judgment, but reliable?
We'll have two teams running them, of course. They didn't break down as far as I am aware. Um, I think they did a solid job. I mean, they have Ford behind them, which also is not a small company. I think they will have their business in order.
The Red Bull livery is so perfect. Like, it's so good. Like the way it marks that partnership with Ford as well, you know, I love what they're doing there. I've never said these words before. I am so excited about both Red Bull teams this season. Because I really think that VCarb is gonna really I'm hoping that they're gonna get away from this whole junior team, sister team thing and kind of carve out their own thing a little bit more. We saw that last year, I think. So I think hopefully this partnership now will also be like a mark of that. And I think with Red Bull, you can never count them out. That's probably our most said phrase on this podcast. You can never count out Red Bull. And I think, you know, it sounds really positive, the feedback that Max has given. Hadjar did crash. Let's just put that out there.
I mean, let's be fair. I think Verstappen also caused a red flag at some point.
He did. He kicked up some gravel. I only say about that because people are already saying, who's going to replace Hadjar? We'll know soon, I'm sure. But no, I think it just marks a really exciting era for them. If this pays off as well with the engine, even better. I would just really like to see a Verstappen Russell title fight. So anything I've got to do to see that, I can get behind.
I don't think we're ready for a Russell Verstappen title fight. As far as the livery goes, I was really surprised by them because at this point, anytime every year it's going to be, have they changed anything? No, of course not. And this year we were like, will they change anything? No, of course. Oh, wait, they did something different. So that was a pleasant surprise, and I think their shakedown was positive, just positive. I think rivals were pretty impressed with how the powertrain worked and how they performed. Of course, you can't really look at the timesheet because it's literally just nonsense at this point.
I actually think it might have been Russell that was saying that the Red Bull seems pretty solid going in now. I honestly think that hearing from the drivers about their like rival teams is a lot more interesting and a lot more telling than listening to like the media outlets and the team principals. I think you've got to listen to what the drivers say about their competitors, and I think that's where you will get the clearest picture at this stage in the season.
But it's always nice to see more manufacturers in a sport like this because it just adds to the competition as well, which is nice to see.
In that regard, like something we've talked about a lot on the podcast before as well is like, you know, going back to kind of the glory days when you had loads of different tire suppliers. And I think the fact that in the next 2 years, pretty much most teams will be bringing their own power unit, I think is so exciting, especially going into like a new era. I think that will be really fun to watch, especially if the regulations pay off the way we're kind of assuming that they're going to. So yeah, I think we're in a really good spot for the next few seasons. If this works the way God intended, it's going to be incredible, I think.
You mentioned driver feedback, of course. I saw something from Lewis Hamilton where he was pleasantly surprised by the driving style of these new cars. He described it as more oversteery, which is, if you ask any driver, oversteer is the thing you want because you can kind of turn that into downforce. And you can always, put less downforce in the car so it turns less. But yeah, I mean, he was pretty positive about these new regulations and also the car, because he went out of 2025 the most broken, I believe. Major changes at Ferrari with race engineer. I think he changed his entire staff at this point.
Race engineer, press officer, manager. Lewis is basically just cleaned house, and we go again. It's really important now that he gets comfortable in the team and he establishes himself, because also if the car is good and you're Fred Vasseur and you've got the Ferrari second coming of Christ, golden boy on one hand, and you've got the most decorated, most successful driver in the sport there as well, what are you gonna do? So I think Lewis really needs to establish that core team in the image of Ferrari now, or it's going to be a rough season.
I mean, to answer your question, I hope Fred Vasseur just lets them race and doesn't pull a McLaren. Anyway, yeah, we were talking about Red Bull there, and I just want to personally add it's good to see Ford back in the sport. Of course, rather interesting, Red Bull were formed after they bought the Jaguar team, who were run by Ford. Just a little Easter egg out there.
History repeating itself, always nice.
History teaches us a lot about the future.
We shall see.
What
we did see was a rather spectacular, and I'm quoting George Russell here, and he says spectacular Aston Martin design. What are your thoughts?
I mean, like I say, they made an entrance. They showed up halfway through the week. They had to turn off the flight tracker because everyone was tracking that plane, carrying that car. You know, this is the biggest, like, anticipation, I think, from everything, from the whole lineup. I think maybe that's kind of flown under the radar a bit because it's the new regulations and Audi and Cadillac. No, Aston Martin, that car is the car that we are all waiting to see what it does. Let's be real. We got lost in the sauce a bit, but that's the car that we need to really keep an eye on. So they've got a bit different. We know that just from looking at the car. It's a bit rogue compared to the other teams. And we also know that Adrian Newey knows what he's doing when it comes to making a car that doesn't quite look like all the other cars. So,
I mean, one thing I will add is that maybe there's a little bit of overhype. Because
maybe
we seem to forget that Adrian Newey only joined Aston Martin halfway through 2025. How much did he have in input in that car? I'm sure he will have had some input, and
I think he had a lot.
But you kind of forget that the 2026 preparation started way before the 2025 season, and I would rank them probably top 6 at least.
One would hope,
and that's going in before Australia. And you know how I am about putting in predictions before Australia. But yeah, I think they will be up there if they get their business in order. We have a Honda engine which has been proven to be very good because we've had Honda Red Bull in the past. So I think on the technical side they won't have those issues. Well, anything aerodynamic related, and Adrian Newey is practically just a very safe option. So yeah, and their lineup is good enough.
That was polite.
It'll do.
I mean, they have added Jensen Button to their ambassador lineup as well, so they can now officially say that they have 2 world champions in their team.
They can say that. It's true. But I think it works. That's such a good, partnership. It's the same as like Anthony Davidson now being a development driver for Mercedes. They've got the right idea, I think, having these guys in, bringing them into the teams. They're so loved by fans as well, which is a great bonus. But they also know what they're doing. They know what they're talking about. They've got a lot of experience across the whole grid, But I think I get why it could be overhyped. But I think, let's be real, that is where we've all been. That's where we're all going to be looking, because Aston Martin have just been and then it all goes a bit wrong. So I think there's a reason it's being hyped up as much as it is. And I think he had a large amount of input into that car from what I understand.
To end today's podcast, let's talk Haas and the acquisition of Jack Doohan. What do you think? Good fit?
I think it makes sense. I think his time was cut so short. So I'm just happy that he's still kind of part of the ecosystem in any capacity. Him working closely with Behrman and Ocon as well, I think could be a very strong partnership. I feel like that would work really well. And I think also having him in a development position is a good thing. You know, ultimately he was not really given any time to prove himself. Haas was steadily consistent last season. I think it's nice to see him attached to the team. I don't see any downside to it really. I think he will bring experience in some capacity.
I think Jack Doohan has only been in the news when he was crashing a car lately. But if you're going to join any team, I think Haas is one of the healthiest environments to join as a development driver in these years, apart from Williams, I'd say. So yeah, good for him. I hope to see him on track. I don't think he'll return to F1 in a full-time seat anytime soon, unless we have kind of a shock exit in coming years. But yeah, good to see him still being involved in F1, and I can't wait to see him do a couple of FP1s.
You say Haas is a good environment. I think Ayuka Komatsu's done a good job. You also mentioned Williams, and their car hasn't even touched a track yet. So we wait and see. So that is our analysis on the Barcelona Shakedown. What are your thoughts? Let us know in the comments below. We also have a interview with the Indian F4 runner-up, Sachal Roque. So go check that out. It was a really, really good interview about, up and coming drivers, getting into, whatever series of motorsport they choose to. Also check us out on our socials. We've got TikTok, we've got Twitter, we've got Facebook and Instagram, and keep your eyes peeled for more videos dropping.